Open Snow meteorologist Alan Smith here. As the 2025-2026 ski season approaches, we thought it would be fun to look back and reminisce on some of the more impressive winters the West has enjoyed over the past few decades. After much research, we've come up with a list of what we believe are the top 10 deepest winters in the West since 1980. Here are some of the loose criteria we used to come up with our top 10 list. First, we examined snowfall and snowpack data across the major ski regions of the western US and Canada, where weather patterns are most similar. We did not examine Alaska, as weather patterns and winter seasons vary substantially in Alaska versus the contiguous western US. Next, we focused on seasons with heavy snowfall relative to average across large portions of the West. There are many past winters that were deep in some parts of the West and dry in others. We prioritize winters where a majority of the major ski regions of the West had big winters. We focused on seasons with ski resorts that experienced record winters or top 5 winters. We also looked at the consistency of snowfall over the course of the season, including strong starts in December that set the tone for the seasons ahead. And finally, we placed a secondary focus on temperature, with priority given to winters with near to below average temperatures, in addition to abundant snowfall, as colder temperatures typically result in better quality snow. The greatest challenge is finding reliable historical snowfall data, which is less available than you might expect. There are a number of ski resorts with long periods of season snowfall records, and we certainly utilize this data. In other instances, we identified press releases and articles which contain season snowfall records at various ski resorts. Also, we evaluated snow water equivalent, the amount of water contained in the snowpack, at snowtel locations, as a measure of snowpack relative to average for the West as a whole. Some snowtel locations are located within ski resorts, so we use this data to evaluate how deep the snowpack was on April 1st relative to average and to past years. In the maps we display for each season, you'll notice that for some areas we use the wording deepest season instead of snowiest season. This is used for areas where snowpack data is available, but actual snowfall numbers are not available. Also, please note that many ski resorts do not have any past snowfall data, so if you don't see your favorite resort mentioned anywhere, that is why. In particular, past season snowfall data is lacking across the Southwest, and to a lesser extent the Northern Rockies and the interior of Canada. But we still examine snowtail data in these regions to factor into the overall rankings. You may also be wondering why we only included winters since 1980. This is because the availability of snowfall and snowpack data at or near ski resorts is extremely limited prior to 1980. While there were certainly some amazing winters back in the day, it was too difficult to compare pre-1980 winters to post-1980 winters due to the lack of data. Okay, now that we have all this background info out of the way, let's dive into the list of the top 10 deepest winters. Number 10 on our list is the winter of 1994 and 1995. This moderate El Nino winter was above average across most of the West, near average in the Pacific Northwest, and a bit below average in the northern and central Montana. Snowpack in the Southwest and the Sierra was over 150% of average on April 1st. Consistent with other El Nino winters, this was a mild winter with above average temperatures despite the abundance of snowfall. This winter also started out relatively slow in most areas in December and January, before cranking up in February and March, resulting in a strong second half of the season. Alta had its third snowiest season on record with 746 inches, while Wolf Creek also notched a top 5 deepest winter based on snowtel data. Number 9 is the winter of 2005-2006. This weak La Nina winter was above average across most of the West, while the Southwest, including New Mexico and southern Colorado, was below average. Snowpack in California, Oregon, Nevada, and the Wasatch in Utah was over 150% of average on April 1st. This winter did not feature many extreme snowfall values, but it was just a really solid winter across most of the West, with colder than average temperatures and consistent snowfall. At least one all-time snowfall record was set at Red Mountain in British Columbia with 307 inches, although there is a caveat that records here only date back to 2004. Other notable snow totals include 579 inches at Mammoth and 507 inches at Jackson Hole. Number 8 is the winter of 1996-1997. This INSO-neutral winter was above average across most of the West, though there were some pockets of below average snowfall over Northern California. Snowpack was over 150% of average across portions of the Northwest, Northern Rockies, and Southwest on April 1st. This winter featured the deepest April 1st snowpack on record at snowtell sites at Stevens Pass, Lookout Pass, and Big Sky. And while many other locations in the Northwest and Central Rockies experienced top 5 winters. Snowfall was heavy and consistent throughout the season in the Northwest, while over the Central Rockies, the season started out strong in December and January, before slowing down some later in the season in February and March. Temperatures were also colder than average across the Northwest and the Rockies, while California and Nevada were warmer than average. Notable snow totals include 577 inches at Jackson Hole, which is a top 5 season, and 448 inches at Steamboat, which is tied for the second snowiest on record. Number 7 is the winter of 2016-2017. This weak La Nina winter was above average across a large portion of the West and near average over the eastern Rockies and across portions of the Pacific Northwest. Snowpack was over 150% of average in California and over portions of the Central Rockies. This was one of the deepest winters on record in Tahoe, and Mount Rose set its all-time snowfall record with an impressive 768 inches. All-time snowfall records were also set at Revelstoke with 491 inches and Sun Valley with 318 inches. Many other areas in the West had top 5 seasons, with notable totals including 866 inches at Mount Baker and 795 inches at Sugar Bowl. The Sierra and the Rockies had a strong early to mid-season, with consistent snowfall through February, before tapering off somewhat late in the season. The Pacific Northwest, on the other hand, had a slower start to the season, but a stronger finish in February and March. Temperatures were a mixed bag, with colder than average temperatures across the Northwest, warmer than average temperatures over the Southern and Central Rockies, and near average temperatures over the Sierra. Number 6 is the winter of 2007-2008. This strong La Nina winter was above average across virtually the entire West. Snowpack was over 150% of average across Oregon, southern Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona on April 1st. This was another all-around solid winter across the entire West, with colder than average temperatures and consistent snowfall, though snowfall was heaviest early to mid-season in December and January, before slowing down somewhat in February and March. Numerous all-time snowfall records were set across the Central Rockies, including 605 inches at Jackson Hole, 550 inches at Silverton, 489 inches at Steamboat, and 426 inches at Whitefish. You could make an argument that this winter deserves to be higher on the list, and we certainly considered it, but we ended up not ranking it quite as high due to a relative lack of extreme snowfall values compared to other winters. Number 5 is the winter of 1998-1999. This strong La Nina winter was the toughest winter to rank, as it featured record snow across the Pacific Northwest, including a world record, while the Central Rockies and the Southwest, including the major ski regions of Utah and Colorado, experienced a poor winter with well below average snow. The clear highlight of this winter was Mount Baker, which received an incredible 1,140 inches of snow. As of 2025, this still stands as the world record for the most snowfall recorded in a season at a single location. All-time snowfall records were also set at Whistler, which received 643 inches, and at Brundage, which received 430 inches. Timberline Lodge in Oregon also recorded its deepest snowpack on record, and numerous other locations in the Northwest had top 5 winters. Snowfall was consistent across the Northwest all season long, and temperatures were also below average. The Sierra managed to have a good season as well, though snowfall amounts were less extreme. This season may very well have ended up near the top of our list, if it weren't for the fact that Utah, Colorado, and the Southwest had such a warm and dry winter. Number 4 is the winter of 1982-1983. This strong El Nino winter was above average across nearly the entire West, except for some pockets of near to below average snowpack in Montana. Snowpack was over 200% of average across much of California and Nevada, and over 175% of average across portions of Utah. In fact, the overall average snowpack across all of the major ski regions of the West combined was the second deepest of any winter on this list. There are not as many publicly available snowfall stats from the early 1980s compared to more recent years, but the ones that are available are very impressive. This includes Sugar Bowl in California, which received 880 inches of snow, which still stands as its all-time snowfall record. Several other locations across the West had top 5 winters, including 700 inches at Kirkland, 671 inches at the Central Sierra Snow Lab, and 557 inches at Loveland. Snowfall was consistent throughout the season across most of the West, with a strong start and a strong finish. Temperatures were a mixed bag, however, with below average temperatures across the Southwest and above average temperatures across the Northwest. Number 3 is the winter of 1981-1982. This INSO-neutral winter was above average across virtually the entire West, and snowpack was over 150% of average across a large chunk of the West on April 1st. This was the gold standard winter for a long time across the West, until the more recent top 2 winters on this list. Some areas had all-time snowfall records set in 1981-1982 that were not broken for a long time. As of this writing, there are no currently active snowfall records during this season that we were able to find, though it's certainly possible, if not likely, that there are still some out there from this season that just aren't readily available. This season started out strong in December, and snowfall was consistent throughout the season. Temperatures were also below average throughout the West. Notable snow totals include 748 inches at Alta, the second snowiest season on record, 624 inches at the Central Sierra Snow Lab, a top 5 season since 1950, and 475 inches at Snow Basin, the second snowiest on record. Number 2 is the winter of 2010-2011. This strong La Nina winter was above average across most of the West, except for New Mexico, where snowpack was below average. Snowpack was over 150% of average across California, Nevada, and Utah. This was a huge winter covering a large area, with many areas spread out across the West, experiencing a top 3 season. All-time records that were set include 606 inches at Mount Bachelor, 600 inches at Crystal Mountain, and 595 inches at Loveland. This was also the second snowiest winter on record at many areas, including 783 inches at Snowbird, 669 inches at Mammoth, 622 inches at Whistler, and 488 inches at Revelstoke. Snowfall was abundant throughout this season, with storms favoring nearly all major ski regions except for New Mexico. While snowfall was plentiful all season long, the beginning of the season in December and the end of the season in March featured some of the heaviest and most consistent snowfall. Temperatures were also below average across most of the West and near average across the Southwest. And finally, the number 1 deepest winter since 1980 is the winter of 2022-2023. We tried our best to avoid recency bias and to not select this winter as number 1, but after examining the data closely, we realized that sometimes the obvious choice is the correct choice. This weak La Nina winter was above average across a large portion of the West, but near average from Washington to northern Idaho, and below average from northern Montana into Canada, which gave us some pause to put this at the top of the list. However, despite these mentioned exceptions, a majority of the West was above average during the season, and snowpack values from California to Utah were nothing short of extreme, ranging from 200 to 300% of average on April 1st. The overall snowpack averages averaged throughout the major ski regions in the West were also the highest of any season examined. The snowfall numbers from this season were just ridiculous, and they encompassed a large area extending from the Sierra to the Rockies. Alta shattered its all-time snowfall record with 903 inches, which is also the deepest total ever recorded in the Rockies. Brighton was not far behind with 861 inches, and even Park City set an all-time record with 628 inches. In the Sierra Nevada range, numerous all-time records were also set, including 710 inches at Palisades Tahoe and 708 inches at Kirkwood. Mammoth also shattered its all time records, with 715 inches recorded at its base lodge and 870 inches recorded at the summit. Further east, Jackson Hole with 595 inches and Steamboat with 448 inches recorded their second snowiest winters. This was a monster season for most of the West, with frequent storms starting in November and December, giving way to consistent snowfall throughout the season into March and April. Temperatures were colder than average throughout the West, ensuring good snow quality. To recap, here's our top 10 list of the deepest winters in the West since 1980. We also have an honorable mention for a few strong winters that we considered for the list, but didn't quite make the cut. This includes the winters of 1983, 1984, 1984, 1985, 1995, 1996, and 2018, 2019. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video and were able to reminisce about some of these past epic seasons. Be sure to subscribe to our channel for more mountain weather and snow content. And if you haven't already, be sure to download the Open Snow app to help you plan your ski days this winter. Whether you're chasing powder, searching for sunny days, or something in between, our detailed snow and weather forecasts for any location, expert local forecasters, and high-resolution weather maps have you covered.